In the meeting, you had all of the atheist pimps. You had Richard Dawkins. You had that old guy who should be in a coffin, Stephen Weinberg. You had all these different people sitting down. And while he's sitting there, they were talking about moving naturalism forward. Alex Rosenberg, everybody had to put out an issue on the table, which is an issue which is outstanding for naturalism to move forward. And guess what Alex Rosenberg said? We have no explanation for the origin of reason. And I want you to challenge my claim if you think I'm wrong. I believe the vast majority of atheists who believe in Darwinian evolution, or they claim, you know, we believe in science, we believe in this, they believe in it not because they understand it, not because it makes sense, but purely because they've been socialized into it. And I'm going to make a secondary claim which is going to be very particular, which is I do not believe you understand anything about Darwinian evolution and you only believe in it because of socialization. Now that's a claim.
Correct.
So are you willing to challenge that claim?
Sure.
So I want you to tell me, how does bacteria lead to us?
How does bacteria lead to us? Through the process. Now, if you're going to ask me, I'm reading a book, 2 books actually at the moment. So I know you're the evolutionary guy, and I know many of your arguments. Well, you debated Aaron Ra, and you're one of the evolutionary guys. So one of the things you come to do here is try and steer towards evolution. So I will tell you up front that I'm not an expert on evolution. You know more potentially about it. You can get into finer details. What I will tell you is that I'm reading the book Why Evolution is True by Jerry Coyne.
I've got that.
Good. So maybe you need to debate Jerry Coyne on evolutionary psychology, etc. And also Dr. Alice Roberts.
Okay, so in that book, Why Evolution is True.
I'm reading it, yes.
Right, you're reading it, right?
Yes.
How many definitions of species are there?
I don't know, I'm not there yet, brother.
Okay.
Now you're going to cross-question me on the book. I said I'm reading it.
Okay, but I'll tell you.
Fine, go ahead.
There's at least 26. Okay? Now, if there's 26 different definitions of species, and the claim is, which I made originally, that people believe in Darwinian evolution, majority of atheists, including yourself, not because they understand it, because they're socialized into it, I want you to tell me which of those definitions, not 2 or 3, just tell me one of those definitions which Darwin used in The Origin of Species, okay, which is the reason why you accept that the origin of species is correct.
Okay, so I want you to get away from this. You do this a lot. You keep going into Darwinism. Today it's the modern theory of evolution. Why do you keep talking back about Darwinism? It's like Nazism. People have moved on. The modern theory of evolution is a lot further advanced than what Darwin predicted in his time. So would you agree with that? Genetics, DNA, etc. I'm not saying Darwin's wrong. It's been improved upon.
But that's a good question.
What I'd love to hear you say in the future, Sabur, is talk to people about the modern theory of evolution. Get rid of the word Darwinism, because that seems to me a straw man.
Okay, that's a very good point that you've made.
And I'm going to answer the rest of your
question.
No,
wait, 1 sec. That's a very good point that you've made, but it's incorrect, and I'll tell you why. The term Darwinism is not a term which I came up with. It is a term Alfred Russel Wallace, who was Darwin's contemporary, who disagreed with Darwin on human evolution, he coined. And till today, we have atheist evolutionary biologists, psychologists, and philosophers of science who use the term Darwinism as an academic term which refers to the idea that natural selection is the primary driving force of evolution. And they acknowledge the modern synthesis, of course. They include the subfields of population genetics, fossils, DNA, all of that, right? That's not the issue. The issue is Darwinism as a term is an academic term. So when I actually use it, I'm not using it in a derogatory way, like Nazism. And also you need to understand the reason why I use the term Darwinism or Darwinian evolution is because there's many different alternatives. So when we speak about the modern theory of evolution, if you said, Rob, well, refer to the modern theory of evolution. Well, which modern theory? Because we have orthogenetic evolution, we have evolution by natural genetic engineering, we have neo-Lamarckian evolution, we have neo-mutationism, we have evolution by self-organization and the acquirance of entire genomes. We have all these different evolutionary models. Most of them are non-Darwinian. So when I use the term Darwinism, Aaron Ra doesn't know what he's actually talking about, which is why in the debate he couldn't actually, all he could say is, well, you see, in America there's a different definition to Darwinism than there is in the UK. That's pretty much all he said. So the reason why I make this distinction is because atheists who go around talking about this theory like it's the best thing since sliced bread do not even know the basic definition. So my original claim that the majority of atheists don't even understand Darwinism, including yourself, has just been proven correct.
If you think so, that's fine.
Because you don't know the basic terms.
I'm reading the book. Do I need to be an expert on everything? If we have if I bring my friend here who's a cosmological expert, and he says to you, oh, well, you don't understand this, that means it's proven right? Come on, Sabura.
No, what?
Just because I don't know specifics.
I'm making a particular claim. Tell me if I'm wrong.
I've told you.
You only believe in it because of socialization. You don't understand it.
I believe in it because it's a naturalistic explanation for how we get here.
Sure.
I am reading books on it. That's why I believe in it.
So you understand it?
I don't understand it fully.
Thank you. Thank you. That's what I'm looking for. Just admit it. You don't understand
Does anybody understand anything fully, to use your term?
That's fine. Do you know what you call that? You call that basically just pressing the red button, just make everything explode. Oh, we don't really know anything, you know. Is that leaf really green?
I thought you were going to be a Quaker.
Oh, sorry, I am a Quaker. Is that leaf really green? Because it actually kind of looks like it's a reflection in all the other colours in the spectrum have actually been observed.
Disingenuous. So
no, he's making sense actually.
No, actually, what I'm doing is this. You have your little YouTube channel, speakers, whatever it's called, right? You come around here, you're trying to talk to people, right?
Yes, I have.
I came here just to show you do not have a clue what you're talking about. Unless if you want to challenge that, that's fine. Or else I'm going to walk away with that last bottom line. You don't have no idea how Darwinian evolution works.
I have a basic idea, that's it. If you're going to question me
okay, let's check your basic idea.
What's
your basic idea?
Natural selection through mutation. That's the basic idea.
Natural selection through mutation.
Through mutation.
Natural selection through mutation. Okay.
Now you're going to question me.
No. Let me tell you that. Let me just tell you something. And do you know what? I'm not someone who gets angry often, right? But I'll tell you something that does really piss me off.
Please do.
When somebody tries to make claims and you shoot down those claims, and then as you've beaten them on the floor, they decide to shout something back at you. You're like, huh, what did you say? And then they try and defend themselves. So you're telling me the basic that you understand about Darwinian evolution is this. It's natural selection plus mutation. Well, guess what? That's not even Darwinism. It's natural selection plus random mutations.
So what?
If it's natural selection plus mutations, guess what it becomes? Epigenetics.
So
autogenetic evolution. So even you yourself, even though you were slapped on the floor, you said, no, I do understand something.
Come back to the Quaker.
Oh, I'm a Quaker, sorry. And you do come back to something, which is, I do understand something basic, which is, I'm not going to give you any evidence of how biodiversity came, how, you know, biochemistry, genetics, anatomy, biochemistry, linguistics, how all of this fits within the evolutionary model. I'm just going to tell you, this is what I understand, two friggin' terms, mutation and natural selection, and you still got it wrong.
Quaker.
You still got it wrong. So like I said again, sorry, I should be a Quaker.
So effectively you don't know the basics.
No. You stripped down evolution to two terms and you got them wrong. So here's what I'm going to do. You don't understand Darwinian evolution. You've only been socialized into it. That's my claim. If you're not challenge that claim, I'm going to stay. If you don't want to challenge it, I'll walk away, and that's the bottom line. You and the rest of those atheists, they have no idea what they're talking about.
Darwinian evolution is a trick.
Okay, so
are you going to challenge my claim?
Sure.
Go on.
Okay. So the reason why we believe in naturalistic processes is because most of the things that have been explained on this planet have been explained through natural processes. So is it reasonable to believe that we can explain most, if not everything, within our universe in some naturalistic way?
Okay, that's a good question, and I'm actually totally happy to move on to that question. It's a separate discussion. So let's close the previous discussion and start this.
But you asked me the question, why do atheists believe in evolution? Because it's socially constructed.
Sure. Okay, now let's move on to this discussion about naturalism.
But that was the answer.
So you said most of the things have been explained via naturalism.
Correct, yes.
Correct. Okay. Here's what I'm going to say.
Do you agree or not?
I'm just going to say something. Not only do atheists not understand Darwinian evolution, they don't even understand science. And I'll tell you why. most of the things can be explained naturalistically. Can reason be explained naturalistically?
It's a naturalistic byproduct, isn't it? A byproduct of naturalism.
That's an assumption.
But now you're going on to something different. I said most of the things.
You said most of the things can be explained naturalistically, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Most things in our natural world.
Okay.
Yes.
Our ability to reason, can it be explained naturalistically?
There are theories, as far as I understand, like emergent materialism, like evolutionary reliability.
Emergent materialism?
These are some of the theories.
Emergent materialism?
Some of the theories.
What the hell is that?
Have you not heard of that?
I do know exactly what that is, but that's got nothing to do with this discussion.
You're asking me what.
You're using. You know what you're doing? Sorry. I need this guy next to me. So calm.
I'm the calm one.
Okay. I got so angry I lost what I was saying. What was I actually saying?
You want to stop?
You're talking about this.
No, you want to stop?
No. Emergent materialism. So here's why, as a Quaker, I feel like breaking my biscuit rather than getting peed off. This is what atheists do. When they don't understand something or when they want to sound clever, they throw a term out. Emergent materialism. Emergent materialism is an explanation, a type of explanation for consciousness, not the original reason. So what you just did is, when you didn't know an answer, you just decided to throw out a philosophical term to sound clever. The original reason, according to atheists themselves, including Alex Rosenberg, who is a full-out atheist, militant atheist according to him, who actually is an anti-theist. He's a philosopher of science. This is what he says. He was sitting in a meeting, and the meeting was called Moving Naturalism Forward. In the meeting, you had all of the atheist pimps. You had Richard Dawkins. You had that old guy who should be in a coffin, Steven Weinberg. You had all these different people sitting down. And while he's sitting there, they were talking about moving naturalism forward. Alex Rosenberg, everybody had to put out an issue on the table, which is an issue which is outstanding for naturalism to move forward. And guess what Alex Rosenberg said? We have no explanation for the origin of reason.
Okay, so let's break it down. What is
I'm
the?
a Quaker, sorry. Yeah.
You've forgotten. That's okay. What do you understand by the origin of reason? What do you mean by reason?
Okay. Again, we've moved on. I am happy to move on to this discussion. Totally happy. But as long as you concede that it's a different discussion to what we're having, that's fine.
You brought it up. I didn't bring up reason, did I? I said
no. You said everything. You said most of the things that we know can be explained naturalistically.
I said most things in the world we can explain through the scientific method or naturally. Yes.
Okay. Naturally. All knowledge is self-knowledge because it goes through you. And what does it go through? A reasoning process.
And what's
so
the foundation?
All I asked is this. Is there an explanation for the origin of reason? You said yes. And I just showed you that even according to atheists, there is none.
So explain to me what reason is, because you
That's fine. I'm happy to move on to that discussion.
No, that's part of the same discussion.
No, I am happy to move on to that discussion as long as you concede on another point that you have no idea what you're talking about.
If you're going to keep saying that, then I think there's no point in continuing to talk, because when I ask you a question and it's part of your initial assertion, then you say we're moving off topic.
No, because
you claimed that science
what I want to
can't
do is
explain
this.
the
What I
origin
want to
of
do is
reason.
this. Another thing that atheists do is this. They always run off to a different topic. The topic that I want to speak about right now is this. You made a claim that most of the things that we know can be explained naturalistically. And I asked you about the origin of reason, you said that too, and I showed you not that. Now you're asking me, what is reasoning? Or what is the origin of reason? So what I'm going to do is this. I'm going to say, Rob, you know what? Fantastic. We had a great conversation. I'm going to go back to my Quaker mode. We'll move on to that. I'm happy to do that. But that's a separate discussion. That's all I'm saying. That's a separate discussion. I'm happy to go into what the origin of reason is from my understanding. Totally happy, but it's a separate discussion.
Yes, and your claim was that I can't account for it. That
point of view, the origin of reason is a thorn. And do you know the first person to know that this is actually a really big problem was actually Darwin himself? Because Darwin said, how can I accept that, the convictions of a monkey's mind? How can I accept that? How can I accept our own convictions in our mind if we evolved and we have a common ancestor with them? Now, the co-founder of the theory of natural selection, along with Darwin, Alfred Russel Wallace, another atheist, he actually moved away from Darwin, which is why we call it Darwinian evolution, not Darwin and Wallace's theory, how it was known in the Victorian times, because he moved away from Darwin. He said Darwinian evolution is true for everything except human beings. And why did he say this? He said this because of savages, which they used to call anybody who was basically in South America or Africa, right? Savages, if you take them to Europe, they can do maths, they could do physics, they could do psychology. So Alfred Russel Wallace said, do you know what? Darwinism cannot, or natural selection cannot explain this reasoning capacity, which is way more than you need for survival and reproduction, which is why he moved away from Darwin. Now what actually happened was this: Darwin got peed off, so he wrote a letter to Alfred Russel Wallace, and do you know what he said? He said, don't murder our child. Because if you both come out and you say this is our theory, and one of you says, actually, I don't think it makes sense in terms of human beings, you make the theory look bad. So the origin of reason, it is a very complicated area, but the bottom line is, from a Darwinian perspective, there is no explanation.
Let's assume for the sake of argument that there is currently not an explanation for that. Is that okay?
We're not going to assume.
No, we're not going to. Okay.
We are going to say, from a naturalistic point of view, it is impossible to give a origin of reason explanation in terms of survival and reproduction.
Does it need to be just survival and reproduction?
Well, what you could do is you could reject Darwinism and go with something else.
No, I'm just asking you, does it have to be on that? Because remember, we've moved on from just survival and reproduction, haven't we? We're not just in the survival reproduction mode, if you want to call it that, now. Would you agree with that? We're not just doing that now.
Well, yes, but also what you need to understand is, from a Darwinian perspective, when there is something which sticks out like a thorn, which is not survival and reproduction, it is so easy to give a label to that mystery and say it's an evolutionary byproduct. So hospitals, survival of the unfittest, evolutionary byproduct. If you do that, there's no point in having a conversation, because it's an unfalsifiable hypothesis. Because anything that fits in line with survival and reproduction, you say, hey, that's mine, survival and reproduction. Anything that doesn't, you say, well, it's a byproduct.
No, but we could do exactly what you've said, which is we could say, hey, it's a mystery. We're still trying to work out how that is.
No, I don't want to say it's a mystery.
No,
I want to say, from an atheistic perspective, it makes no sense. And since atheists pretend to be clever, and they pretend to be rational, and they pretend to throw out terms which they don't understand, then how dare they claim they are rational when they can't give an explanation for the origin of reason? When I, as a Muslim, I can say, well, do you know what? Have a good day. If you want to pretend to be clever, that's absolutely fine, but you can't even give an explanation for the origin of reason.
Okay, so what sort of explanation would satisfy you?
Wait. I never said there's an explanation that's going to satisfy you.
No, not
I said there is no satisfactory explanation from your perspective when you guys pretend to be so clever.
Okay, but you said it was impossible, correct?
From a naturalistic point of view, yes.
Okay, so can you demonstrate why that's impossible?
Okay, I'll demonstrate not why I think it's impossible, but why philosophers of science like Alex Rosenberg believe it's impossible.
You tell me. Okay, because you're throwing out names, but just
tell
me.
Here's why. Here's why. If I want to survive, because all that they actually have in terms of a worldview, are you paying attention?
Yes, I am. I'm making a note here.
All that they have is survival and reproduction as an explanation for biochemistry, genetics, anatomy, psychology, linguistics. That's all they have. So the problem comes when you try to give an explanation about true and false beliefs. That's one layer of problem. So say the mushrooms. Now, some mushrooms are poisonous. Now, you can survive on a false belief, which is that all mushrooms are poisonous. You can survive on that belief. So if you can survive on a true belief, and if you can survive on a false belief, how can you make a distinction between the two? You can't. So what the actual fundamental problem from that layer is, how can we say our mind is trustworthy when our mind wasn't geared for truth, but survival?
Okay, so one of the ones that I've heard and is of interest to me that I'm studying is...
Do you understand it, or are you socialized into it?
I'm looking into it.
No, are you socialized, or do you understand it?
Socialized means that I've just grown up with it, isn't it?
No. society is saying, woo, 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 this thing's true, so you say it's true too. It's like sheeps following each other.
Is that what you really think atheists do?
I truly believe 100% that's exactly what they do, and I made that claim that you do that too.
100% of the atheists?
Yes.
Well,
it's a social thing. It's a social thing.
Because people study, like literally, they do have the curiosity to study. They read books, they go.
Sure. So can I tell you one reason why it's totally false? This whole new atheist movement, based on this total nonsensical idea that there's no God. I'll tell you why it's totally false, and they're all sheep. Every single new atheist. I'm not referring to somebody who's confused about God. I'm referring to new atheism. Why they're a bunch of sheep is because of this. The book that they follow, the God delusion, the central argument that they follow in that Bible is a 6-step process, and that's called the central argument. And that central argument, it basically is this. Darwinism gives an explanation of biodiversity, so we don't need a designer to explain that. Therefore, the conclusion that Richard Dawkins, their prophet, makes is their God almost certainly doesn't exist. Now, Charles Darwin himself would have disagreed with that conclusion. This is why neo-atheism is based on a falsehood. Darwin was never an atheist. He was a deist. He believed there was a God, but not a personal God, not Christianity or Islam or anything like that. The last decade of his life, because of the problem of evil, he became an agnostic. But he still said, my beliefs about God fluctuate. Sometimes he's a deist, sometimes he's an agnostic. So this whole movement online that you see, all these videos that you see, all these people that you say, oh, evolution's true, therefore there's no God, or Darwin got it right. Even the founder doesn't agree with that. Plus, Richard Dawkins in an interview, do you know what he said? He was saying with Lawrence Krauss, he said, there's a perception that if you believe in evolution, you have to be an atheist. This perception's false. Because this perception, the perception exists that because evolution is true, therefore there's no God. He says that this perception is wrong. But because this perception exists, that to believe in evolution you have to disbelieve in God, he says all I have to do is prove to people that evolution is true, therefore God doesn't exist. So he is feeding on the ignorance of people.
But that's not 100% of the atheists.
Okay, this is a new atheism. New atheism. I'm not referring to every single Tom, Dick and Harry who's confused about God. I'm referring to new atheism, which I believe Rob is part of.
Well, okay, so I don't subscribe.
Are you part of that?
I don't subscribe to that, so no.
Oh, that's great.
So you should ask
So
ahead of
when
time.
you refer to people like Essence of Thought, when you refer to people like Aaron Ra, when you refer to people like Richard Dawkins, they are.
Well, I didn't refer to Richard Dawkins, did I?
Essence of Thought.
Jerry Coyne, sorry.
Jerry Coyne.
Okay,
So-
Jerry Coyne is.
Jerry Coyne is what?
He's a new atheist.
Your claim about a new atheist, yeah.
No, he is one.
If you say so. I don't know what,
So
what he labels
is Aaron
himself.
Ra not one?
You tell me. I don't know.
Okay, so when they
He's
have
just an atheist.
conferences,
What's the difference?
well, it's a new brand. It's an old idea.
By the
it's
way-
an old underwear or whatever. They just cleaned it out and they just want to start wearing it again. It's nothing new. The only difference between the new atheist and the old atheist, like Nietzsche, is this: Nietzsche was honest because he understood, from a naturalistic point of view, words, meanings, actions are all meaningless. This whole universe, just how irrational as it is, if an apple falls off a tree, falls on a tree and cuts in two, it's a rearrangement of atoms. Likewise, if I bludgeon myself with a hammer, there's no difference because it's rearrangement of atoms. That's why neo-atheism is different to old atheism.
Neo-atheism?
But the new atheism.
New atheism.
New atheism is different to old atheism because old atheism was at least not hypocritical. They knew there was no meaning of life. They knew there's no such thing as rights, values, morals. These are all social constructs. They knew this. But you guys pretend like you have something when you don't.